Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. Hope the day is going well, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world, as we head towards Wednesday night's Champions League game between Arsenal and Dinamo Zagreb. Win for Arsenal, all but guarantee, well, it would guarantee themselves at least a playoff spot in the knockout stages of the Champions League, but hopefully would go a long, long way to securing a top 8 spot, which of course might send them straight through to the quarterfinals without the need to play in that playoff round of fixtures, which would be a huge boost, not least because it would be a nice little break in fixtures, which would probably mean a trip to Dubai. And judging what happened after Dubai last season, I think we could all get behind that again this season. So I am literally recording this and then I'm heading off to London Colney today to the training ground we've got open training session. I'm hoping I'll be able to do the press conference afterwards, but it's due to start at 3:00 UK time. And whenever we go down there for open training, that always goes over time. And then the press conference always starts late. And if that starts late today, I'm going to struggle because I need to be back home to pick up my kids from after school club at 5:00. So I'm very much going to be keeping an eye on my watch. But hopefully I'll be able to do open training and the press conference as well. So this is going to be a short video, I think, today. I will try, if I can, do another one later on after open training when we can get the latest on injuries and that sort of stuff. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I can't promise I'll do it, but I'm going to try and do it anyway. So I'm going to do a short one today. I wanted to start on about Matheus Cunha. Now, we know this is a player that Arsenal like, of course. We've got 2 weeks left of the transfer window. Arsenal so far have done absolutely nothing. I'm sure I'm sure they're working behind the scenes. So when I say they've done absolutely nothing, they haven't signed anyone yet. They are working behind the scenes to try and sign someone. We know Cunha is a player that Arsenal like. It had looked like he was going to be staying at Wolves this window. All the talk was he was about to sign a new contract. All the sort of press pack who are based up in the Midlands, who've got the really good contacts around Wolves, the signals were he was going to sign a new contract with Wolves very, very quickly. That has not happened yet. And there were some very, very interesting comments from the Wolves manager after yesterday's defeat at Stamford Bridge when Wolves didn't play very well. Cunha didn't play that great. And the Wolves manager was far from impressed by Cunha, from his body language and everything going on. And there is suggestions that what is going on behind the scenes in terms of a potential transfer away and interest from Arsenal could well be impacting him. Now, of course, Arsenal play Wolves on Saturday, so there's going to be some very, very strong narrative about Matheus Cunha leading up to this game. But this is what the Wolves manager said after yesterday's defeat at Chelsea, where they lost 3-1, about Matheus Cunha. He said, "This is something that cannot happen again. The frustration is the frustration. I understand everything, but we need to be together, and together we can fix the problems and stay in the Premier League. If we start to complain about this and that, it won't work." Cunha, committed to Wolves, but when you start to listen to the other clubs, Arsenal, I think he's human, and players start to be a little bit. It's normal in football. He needs to put his mind on the target to increase his level. He's coming back from injury. It's normal he's not the same level to help the team with his quality. He has a lot. The team needs him with his good energy, not with frustration. He must slow down and put the mind in the right way. He's a captain. He can be frustrated, but everyone in the dressing room wants to win. I don't like his body language. I understand it, but I won't understand it next time. So really interesting stuff there from Pereira on Matheus Cunha and maybe why he was not at his best last night, and very much hinting there that what's going on behind the scenes in terms of possible links to other clubs could well be impacting him. Now, you know my thoughts on Matheus Cunha. I really like him, and I think he's absolutely ready to make the next step. And I'm surprised he's going to sign. When all this talk about the new contract came out, I was very surprised. I was like, why would you do that? Why would you sign that contract? When you know you're at the sort of age now, I think it's 24, 25, you're at the age now to take that next step, and you know that top clubs are interested in you. Why would you sign, even if there's a release clause there? I don't know why he seems so keen to sign, but there is now suggestions that maybe the agent is trying to change things a little bit and is maybe agitating for a January move. You know, could this be an opportunity for Arsenal? If there's a player who's unhappy, could you potentially get him at a maybe slightly lower cost? I mean, there's talk as well of Wolves wanting in excess of 80 million for Cunha. Now, if that is the case, and that is, look, you steer away from that. 80 million just seems too much for me. I don't think you can value Cunha at 80 million. I know I've called for Arsenal potentially overpay for their targets this window just to make sure they can get them in because they desperately need them. But I think over 80 million for Cunha is pushing it a little bit when it comes to overpaying. So I would probably steer clear of that. I can't imagine that is a realistic number that they would really be asking for. But we'll wait and see on that. It's certainly one to keep an eye on as we head towards the window. 2 weeks left of the window now. The clock is absolutely ticking. Arsenal need to get something done. They really do. Could it be Matheus Cunha? We shall find out. But yeah, that's the latest on that. It's definitely going to be interesting narrative about that game at the weekend. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions in the press conferences. Not that Mikel will answer them, but maybe Pereira might be a little bit more open. We shall see on that. As I said, I'm heading down to London Colney in a minute for open training session where we might get a little bit of a hint. Could we see any injured players come back? Will Calafiori be there? Will Ben White be there? Will Tomiyasu be there? We'll wait and see. I mean, even if they are potentially nearing full fitness, it wouldn't at all surprise me that Mikel wouldn't put them out in front of the cameras anyway, because we know he likes to do that sort of thing. But it would be a huge boost, absolutely huge boost, if we could see at least one of those players before the game against Zagreb today at the training ground. Ben White especially, just desperately need him back and involved sooner rather than later. Going to be lots of interesting questions, I imagine, at the presser about what Arsenal are going to do. William Saliba, of course, I doubt we'll see him in training today, but there will definitely be questions about him. See if we get more of an explanation about how long he could potentially be out with this hamstring problem that saw him miss the game at the weekend. Obviously, lots of talk that he's in a race against time to be fit for the Manchester City game in a couple of weeks. And yeah, no Saliba's going to give Mikel another sort of riddle that he's going to have to solve in terms of what he does with the back line tomorrow. I think this is definitely a game for Jakub Kiwior for me. If you can't play him at home, even slightly out of position at centre-back, if you can't play him at home against Dynamo Zagreb in the Champions League, then what's he even doing at Arsenal? In my view, it doesn't make any sense. And you can just play Timber at right back, and then you don't need to worry about the whole Thomas Partey at right back type situation. Jakub Kiwior should be comfortable enough to play alongside Gabriel at centre back with the likes of Thomas Partey or Declan Rice ahead of him tomorrow. This is a game Arsenal absolutely have to win. You win tomorrow, and you're so close to securing yourself a top 8 spot. It's a really key game ahead of the trip to Spain next week for the last game against Girona. It's a 3 points, an absolute necessity for this one. And for me, it just seems really, really an easy decision to make on this one. You just play Kiwior and Gabriel, 2 centre backs together. You keep Timber at right back. You play Lewis Skelly, or maybe you give Lewis Skelly a rest because he's played a lot of minutes recently. You can play one of the other left backs. You can play Tierney. You can play Zinchenko over on that left-hand side. And then you can just leave the midfield. You can do whatever you want in midfield, but you don't need to play Thomas Partey at right back for this game. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about that in the press conference later. You'll be able to see that press conference live on Arsenal.com. The transcript will be up afterwards. Like I said, I'll try and do a video afterwards as well, talking about the big talking points that Mikel Arteta has had to say in that press conference. But yeah, I'm sure Thomas Partey right back and the options to sort of replace William Saliba will certainly be at the forefront of those questions that will be coming up a little bit later. Looking at what some of you guys have been saying about that this sort of very topic that we've just been discussing. Deej says, worried that the stretch squad is approaching breaking point, much like Spurs. Good thing is that Arsenal are second and Spurs are about 15th, whatever it is they are with their injuries. I think any signing now wouldn't be expected to make a notable impact for 2 to 3 weeks. Would go for some extreme rotation against Zagreb and have the safety net on the bench. Nichols right back, in front three of Tierney, Trossard and Sterling. Sorry, I had to do a double take there. Starting Tierney in the front three, not for me, Deej. This is too big a game for that. Arsenal have to win this game. Jorginho, Zinni and Kiwior back up to keep Rice and Odegaard, but hopefully take Odegaard off after an hour. Devil's Slayerish says Kieran Tierney played centre-back for Scotland. He did, but I don't think he played on the right side of centre-back for Scotland, off the top of my head. Vet Paris says, hi, Charles. I'd probably go Kiwior at centre-back. He's played right-sided when he first came into the team in Holding's place. He did. Played well, actually. I think Kiwior lacks a bit of pace, so he's really dependent on those who play around him. If he has Timber at right-back, Gabriel left centre-back, and Rice and Partey at 6, you can insulate his biggest weakness with Partey at right-back. I just think it gives you hardly anything going forward. Once you combine that with defensive lapses in concentration, which he even gives you at 6, I think the trade-off is probably worth it for a week or two. Yeah, look, I agree. As I said, for me, these next 3 games, Arsenal have got Zagreb, Wolves, and then Girona. you can play Kiwior in those 3 games. Manchester City, then maybe you have a decision to make in terms of what do you want to do. Do you want to play Kiwior right-sided centre-back against Erling Haaland? You've got a big decision to make. But for these next 3 games, I just don't think it's even that complicated. You just play Kiwior. For me, it just makes perfect sense. So I agree what you're saying there. That para. Dave has got in touch and says, Charles, why do you say you understand why Arteta plays Partey at right back? It doesn't work and we don't win, plain and simple. It makes no sense whatsoever to keep doing it. Rice in centre back alongside Big Gabby, MLS left, Timber right, done. I don't agree with him playing it right back, but I can when I say I understand, I can understand when he's looking at his options and what he wants his right back to do. That Partey, I can see why he likes that idea of what Partey's going to do and the control and coming into midfield and inverting like he does. Obviously, he doesn't give you what Ben White gives you when he's playing right back, and you have to tweak the tactics a little bit. But that's why I say I understand it. I'm not saying I agree with it, and I agree. Look, the numbers: 1 win out of 6 for a manager as analytical as Mikel Arteta is, who takes a lot of faith in data and everything like that. Those numbers are pretty consistent. 1 win in 6 that shows there is an issue there. Obviously, Arsenal do not win, or very rarely win, when Thomas Partey plays at right back. So I can't believe he would ignore those numbers and continue to ignore those numbers. So it's not something I agree with. I don't like seeing Thomas Partey playing at right back. I can just understand why maybe he thinks that's the best option for him right now. But yeah, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying I kind of understand in his head why he likes the idea of Partey playing there and what he thinks it could bring him in the midfield options, more so potentially than moving Declan Rice to right back or Declan Rice to centre back. Rudy says, how many more times are you going to keep saying unlucky with injuries? They keep leaving themselves short because the owners don't have enough ambition to spend the type of funds required to be a serious club at the elite level. Can't keep saying unlucky with injuries after this many years. It's never addressed. Say it as it is. You cannot ignore that they have been unlucky with injuries this season. That's why I keep saying it. They have been unlucky with injuries this season. Yes, they've made mistakes in the transfer window. Absolutely, they left themselves short. I remember at the end of the window, I think the last thing I said on it was they're going to have to be lucky with injuries. And they haven't been. So you can absolutely say that the owners haven't done enough. The summer window didn't work. They left themselves short. They took a gamble. All of that is true. But what is also true is they have been unlucky with injuries this season as well. And the fact that they're all kind of in the similar area as well. It's like you lose Saka, so you bring in Ranieri. You lose Ranieri, you bring in Jesus. You lose Jesus. That is very, very unlucky for me. Your right back situation. Ben White never really gets injured. He's injured. Tomiyasu, right back, injured. It's just players in the same areas going down with these injuries as well. There's definitely been unlucky. I'm not saying there's not blame that needs to be proportioned to people, because there clearly is. And the summer window, massive regrets over what's gone on in the summer window as well. But I still do think they've been unlucky with injuries this season. Absolutely do. Who we got here? Fook Hyonchin says it's not entirely down to bad luck that Saliba, Saka, White, etc. got injured. Another one talking about injuries. They almost have to play every game. I mean, that is true, but they're Arsenal's best players, so they would play pretty much every game. I was looking at it. I was looking through the most minutes so far this season in the Premier League. The first outfield player for Arsenal is Saliba with 1,740 minutes, and that's 57th. So many more players have played more minutes than Saliba this season. Like, I'm just looking on this list ahead of him. You got Bruno Fernandes has played more minutes. Matoma for Brighton, Chris Wood, Morgan Rogers for Aston Villa. Kulusevski for Tottenham. There's plenty. But because they're just good players. Guardiola for Manchester City, Gravenberch for Liverpool, Salah for Liverpool. They've all played more minutes. So, the best players play. That's the way it is in football. It's the way it's always going to be in football. So Saliba, Saka, White, they're some of Arsenal's best players. So they are going to play almost every game. It's not like they're leading the way in the Premier League. Lots of players have played more minutes than them and haven't got injured. So again, injuries do come down to luck a lot of the time. That you can definitely manage things better. And there's been situations where Arsenal didn't need to, but I think certainly last season with Saka especially, I thought they'd actually learned a bit of a lesson this season, and Saka was coming off in games. It felt like they had and that Arteta had learned a bit of a lesson, I thought, this season, but he still got injured now. So yeah, look, it's not entirely down to bad luck. You can manage things. Obviously, the sports science and the managers can study the data that they get and can work out if they think a player needs more rest. But at the end of the day, the best players in every team across Europe are going to play the most minutes because they're the best players, and you want to win games, and you're going to have more chance of winning games if your best players are on the pitch. What we got here? We got one from Sam. He says, Charles, beginning to think we won't sign anyone this window. I respect the owner's decision not to break the bank for a marquee forward in this window because I do think the title is gone. However, if we want to ensure second place and compete for the Champions League, we at least need a good interim signing on loan. Despite what Arteta says, I actually do think we need bodies. Fantastic if we get some to raise the level, but at this level of injury crisis, we actually need just players we can trust off the bench, even if they're not superstars. I agree with the even if they're not superstars type thing. That's absolutely true. You don't just have to sign superstars because, you know, when you can't, I think when you look at superstar signings, the vast majority of them don't work out. You look at the clubs and you look at the sort of record transfer fees paid for forwards and for wingers in Premier League history. So many of them haven't worked. You look at the ones that have been a real big success. They're in that non-sort of superstar bracket and there's sort of mid-range of transfer fees. Look at Liverpool. You know, when they signed Mohamed Salah, he wasn't a superstar, was he? Jota wasn't a superstar. Gakpo wasn't a superstar, but they spent those money and they did it wisely, and they got those players in. So those are the sort of players, you know, it's why I talk about Matheus Cunha, for example. I think he could potentially make that step to be a great player when you sign him, but then go up to the another level. So you don't actually just have to go out and sign superstars. I don't like the idea of just signing bodies, though. They have to be good players. You know, signing a body, Raheem Sterling has basically just been Arsenal signing a body. It has not worked, and he doesn't even want to use him off the bench and barely use him off the bench. So he's basically just a body in the squad, but has provided basically nothing this season. So you can't just be doing that again because there's injuries. The signings you make now have to be worthwhile and going to provide you something. But yeah, I agree that they don't have to be superstars. I don't buy into that at all. Anyway, that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you very much for your questions. Appreciate them always. Like I said, I'm heading off now. I'll get this uploaded, then I'm going to head to London Colney. Hopefully have the latest updates ahead of the game against Zagreb in terms of the latest Arsenal injury news. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And on my social media, I post some videos, that sort of stuff on there from the training session as well. Have a great day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.